Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Posturing for Your Day. Today's a very special broadcast. We are celebrating an anniversary. A year ago today. Yesterday? Oh, it was yesterday.
Sorry,
all right,
folks.
Take two, roll them. A year ago yesterday, Gina broke her wrist. What a lousy day. Her whole life took a twist. She had some things to say. I think you get the gist. Yeah, needless to say, she was pissed. What do you think? I know, don't give up my day jobs, right? Well, again, welcome everybody. Posturing for Your Day, coming to you live, 7:30 a.m. Monday morning. We lost an hour of sleep yesterday, so it's that time of the year. I'm Bill.
I'm Gina. Still.
Still.
Gina.
And what are we doing today? You have
I don't
a
know.
prop.
I just wanted to sit on the ball. That's just something
You
different.
were always on the ball. Yes.
Hopefully I will not fall off the ball.
Yeah, do not fall off the ball. That was a rough day.
Yeah, it was right here, in this very spot. I took a tumble over a table and got an unplanned 2-month vacation.
And I had to vacuum, but I didn't. Well, I'm going to step out of the way, and we're going to get started. What are we doing today? Some wrist.
We're going to do some wrist stuff. Yeah. Some things that I learned. Hope this was a good idea. So yeah, nothing like breaking or injuring a body part to give you a crash course in experiential anatomy. Is what I like to call it.
Experiential anatomy. I like it.
If you have the opportunity to figure out, how you've injured yourself and how it affects the rest of your body, that's a great opportunity. Also navigating, I mean, this was really the first bone I'd ever broken other than a little toe, which didn't really count. But navigating, the orthopedic surgeon thing and the physical therapy thing, and then, getting sort of a glimpse into what a lot of my clients are dealing with was also very educational. Is that too loud?
Yeah, I think it's good.
All right. So, I mean, I opted not to get the surgery, to take my chances, as it were, and going into it feeling pretty confident, but, coming up on 6-8 weeks and not really sure, what it's going to do to affect my work. I mean, obviously, it's not a good place to have an injury for a body worker. So there were some doubts there, and there was some trust, and there was some sometimes doubts that I would get full functionality back. So I guess a year now out of that scenario, and I am back pretty much almost fully, in the sense that I don't favor one hand or the other. I use it just as much as I used to, but realizing too, I mean, there's a spectrum. It's going to be different for everybody, and yes, we're going to have our limitations, and yes, sometimes we're going to injure something, and that's going to be part of our makeup now, but how much do our stories play into how much healing we actually accomplish? If I didn't know the things that I know about anatomy, if I didn't know the exercises to do, would I have stopped with just the PT and just gone on with my life and maybe never really challenged that part more? We do this all the time. We have stories about what we're capable of doing, whether it's because of an injury or your body type or your genetics or age. When do we stop doing things because we don't believe that we can? And how much more could we do if we understood how amazing the body is when you give it the right circumstances and its ability to heal? So I just want to suggest that to you. Again, it's a spectrum, and it's not, I don't want to sound arrogant. Things could have gone very differently for me. I understand that, but for what it is, that's fine.
That's your story, and
That's
you're sticking to it.
And I'm sticking to it. So On that note, let's just do a little bit of stuff with arms and wrists. Given that many of us are in positions that are, what do we call this, pronation, right, and internal rotation of the arm, let's just look at our arms where they are. So we're going to extend them out and then supinate them. So this is one movement that was a challenge. You know, my arm was in a brace like this for, I guess, 8 weeks or so at least,
Yeah.
maybe more, maybe 10 weeks. So it was internally rotated and it was flexed, and I wasn't sure I was ever going to be able to get out of that position. Anyway, so we're looking at our hands, looking at our supination here. How does
What
this
do you
feel?
mean by supination? They may not.
Supination, palm face up, so like you're holding soup in a supine position. So this is pronated and this is supinated. You know, do you feel just the difference between one angle than the other in your shoulders? Can you feel that movement all the way up into the shoulders, and just seeing the relationship here between these positions and what your shoulders are doing? You know, where are your elbow pits? Are your arms straight out, or do they kind of stop here? You know, these are giving you some information about the adaptations you may have in your arms. Just something to be aware of. So extending at the wrists, flexing. You know, how do I? yeah, right. This is one that may always be a little bit of a challenge for me. Is this position?
That was work.
Yeah, it was work.
How did that turn
even
into
doing
work?
that, right? All right. So let's put our hands into some other positions. This is a nice stretch for the wrist. Also may be challenging. And also watching what your shoulders are doing. If you have tension in the arms, a tendency might be to you know, crunch the shoulders up. So you can drop the shoulders down. Hands in prayer position.
Please, Lord, don't let me break my wrist again.
I almost tripped over that table yesterday too. As did you. We should probably not have that table in here. All right, so let's reverse. Let's bring the hands down.
That's as far as I can get.
Yeah. Do you want to come over here?
What? You want me?
All right, and then we're gonna let's do reverse hands. So backs of the hands together. How far down can you get your wrist to touch here? Yeah.
It's weird. I can do it this way. I can't do it this way.
And then, yeah, so if you can do it here, can you bring your thumbs together? Can you open your thumbs wide and touch them? So this is both a assessment and, you know, things you can do when you're in this position. Take breaks and just get these other motions in the wrist. Coming back to the hands and spreading the fingers out. Can you spread your thumb in an L shape relative to your middle finger? Spreading them out wide. It's like, you know, we do this with the feet too. Like there's so many bones and muscles in the hands and feet, and they get limited. They probably get more motion than your feet do, but it's still good to encourage spreading, moving.
Spread out.
Now we'll do a finger stretch. So placing the arm up against the torso, elbow pit is face up. So my whole arm is in a line with my shoulder, and I'm going to start stretching each finger one at a time. Now you want to be careful that you're not, you know, I see people doing this sometimes. Like, you really want to make sure that you're in alignment, just to make sure you're not bypassing where those tense places are in the hands. So I'm just going to bring each finger down, and I'm making sure it's in line with my forearm. And if your finger is, you know, if the muscles in here are so tight that your finger is not straightening out, if you're bending it, just try to bring it to where it will stay straight and just before it starts to bend and stretch there. Does that make sense?
Kind of. Does it matter the position that the wrist is in? Should the wrist be straight, or can I kick the wrist back and also?
Yeah, kick the wrist. Include the wrist in there.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's asking, like, should the hand be here, or can you extend at the wrist? And you can extend at the wrist. Bring each finger down. And then with the thumb, we're gonna do a thumbs up, grasp the thumb, and rotate it at the joint, so it's like a joystick kind of movement. Obviously, if you have, you know, joint pain, arthritis, whatever, you can, you know, just go very gently. Just get a little bit of movement in there. It can help. Not overdoing it. And then we can flip the hand over. So again, making sure the arm is in line with the shoulder. So it's a little harder for me. And then we're going to bring each finger down. Now we're stretching through the top of the hand. Sun's coming up. Yeah. Shake it out a little. To the other side. And making sure the fingers, arm, shoulder are all in line. And maybe this doesn't need to be said, but I think it's worth remembering. You know, the hands, you know, being extremities, I mean, they're gonna have their own issues in their own right, and these things are gonna help if you are developing you know, joint pain and wrist pain and tendinitis and all of these things, and increasing mobility for its own sake. But how these smaller local areas play into other big movements that you may have difficulty doing or may have stopped doing. For example, getting on the floor, you know, doing quadruped stuff, doing planks, doing yoga, whatever it is. If you have limited mobility in your wrists, you may either compensate. That lack of mobility is going to show up somewhere else in your postures, in your movements, or like I said, you may just stop doing those things altogether. And so, you know, sacrificing some of the whole body, bigger movements because you can't get the little ones down is really worth, you know, seeing the relationship of those things. Just like with feet and ankles, you know, we always start with calf stretches when I work with people, because if you're not walking correctly, you know, it's going to affect everything. It's going to affect everything from the feet up. So it's about freeing up all your parts, not just for their own sake, but for the, you know, the global level.
For the larger good.
The larger good, yes. Yeah, some of them are a little more talkative than others. Another little qigong move, and there's two variations of this. So bringing the heels of the hands together and rotating at the wrists. This is kind of free form. You can start just by, going slow enough to explore, like what are your wrists doing, what are your arms doing, making figure eight, and then you can vary the angles, bring the hands up. Get the shoulders into it. You can bring them closer to you. Get more extension in the wrists, so you can stretch them out.
It's another one. It's work.
It's work, yeah. It's something so simple. Yeah, it's challenging all kinds of angles in there, in the forearms and the wrists. Variation on this one would be to interlock the fingers. We do this. Making sure that you're getting, as full flexion and extension as you can. It's always finding that sweet spot between challenging your limitations and forcing them. We don't ever want to force things, but we do want to encourage movement. And be aware of where your body's going to go around tension, because it's very clever like that. Okay, so after we do this for a little while, we're going to switch the fingers, and by that I mean, so here's my natural folding is my left thumb's on top of my right. I'm going to put my right thumb on top of my left, which is the awkward position for me. But we want to, change up things just a little bit there. So while this isn't painful for me, I'm feeling the crack, crack, crack. I think that will probably always be there.
That's your story.
That's my story, yes. When not to stick to your stories, right? So, it'll be a good show. All right. We'll just shake them out. Okay, the last one is another simple one. Again, just working with hinging at the shoulder joint. As I said, we're often in these positions where the upper arms are internally rotated and the hands are pronated. So we're going to do what's called the waiter. So keeping your arms at your sides and your elbows glued loosely to your rib cage. Hands are in supination, face up. And we're just going to hinge at the shoulder joint while keeping the elbows to your sides. Yeah. So that's easier, but we're just trying to keep the motion here and just in and out.
And then my tendency is I want to
Then you want to thrust the ribs. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that want to move to try to get your arms further back. So just trying to keep everything else stable. Open the arms up. Making sure that your hands stay on the same plane, 90-degree angle. Bill's making all kinds of faces at me. Because you wouldn't know, right? You wouldn't know that.
I like to think of myself as being relatively flexible and mobile.
Right.
And then you make me do these things and I realize that I do not have the range of motion that I thought I had.
Yet.
So don't do those things.
Right. That's what happens. We don't do them. Don't do them. It's funny. Before I came across the Katie work, like for years, every few months or so, I would make sure I could still do a headstand. Like it was just one of those things. Like I wanted to make sure I could still keep doing this, so I would keep doing it. Well, I stopped doing it in the last 5 years or so, and I tried doing it not long after my cast came off. And I realized like that, I have to get back to it, but I could easily say, well, I'm older now, and I just can't do a headstand anymore. But it's really just a matter of I just haven't really been trying it, and that's a load I haven't tried with my wrist yet, even though I've kind of brought everything else back in that I used to do. That's still something I have to work up to. But let you know how that goes.
I know, that's going to be on Wednesday's program.
No, on Wednesday's program, so that's something to get started with. On Wednesday's program, we're going to continue with arm and wrist stuff, and Bill is going to show you some self-massage techniques you can do to loosen up the extensors and flexors in the forearm, which can create situations like tendonitis and carpal tunnel syndrome and those sort of things.
Yeah, and that's another, I liked what you started out by saying, sometimes we get a diagnosis, and I'm not knocking doctors or diagnoses, but sometimes once you get that diagnosis, then we cap off and we think, oh, well, then that's it. You know, I have tendonitis. There's nothing I can do about it. It's official. And
Or
the fact,
arthritis is another one. That's a big one where people will stop.
yeah,
saying, like, there's
I
nothing
have
you can do.
arthritis.
Yeah.
And then arthro means joint, Latin. Itis means inflammation. So you go to the doctor and you tell them that your joints are inflamed, and he says, oh, you have arthritis. He's just telling you what you already told him, but he's saying it in Latin. And that diagnosis can be a cap off to where then you feel like, well, then there's nothing I can do about it. And that's often not the case. There's plenty you can do. So, according to Ken Keyes Jr., he's been my go-to for a bit. To be upset over what you don't have is to waste what you do have. So what do you think of that?
So if I don't have $5.4 million,
That's different. That's totally different. That doesn't apply to finances. Anyway. We will see you Wednesday morning at 7:30 a.m. For a little additional wrist work. And until then, have a great day. Stay out of the news.